That's me. You wouldn't think so, eh? Well, that was about 200 kilometers before I reached the South Pole. I was cold, I was hungry, I was absolutely miserable. I lost 15 kilos, and all I wanted to do was going home. But I had a long way to go. I had to get to the South Pole. But I tell you what, I didn't want that place to be treated with anything in the world. I wanted to be there. And even today, I still rather be there than really here on this podium. I do these trips because I care about our Earth, and I care particularly about the Arctic and the Antarctic. Now, I've been there on several trips, and I've seen with my own eyes how fast the ice is melting. Now, I wanted to ask the audience here, how many of you would like to go to the North Pole with me tomorrow? Raise your hand. Holy mo, that's awesome. Now, the next question. Do you still think you can do that in 5 years from now? Raise your hand. Ooh, a lot less. 2 years? Who says that's a whole bunch of bogus? Until 10 years before all that ice is gone. A few. All right, well, in the next 10 minutes, I'm going to explain to you that it is going a lot faster than you would have thought, honestly. So, 2 questions that people always ask me. You already can probably think of them. 1, how do you go to the bathroom? 2, how fast is the ice melting? And the question, or the answer to these questions are both the same. Really fast. I'm going to take you with me on a journey 126 years ago to this guy, George DeLong. You probably never heard of him. And George DeLong was set out to try to find the Franklin expedition who was stuck somewhere in the ice. Can you please dim the light, please? Thank you, because of my eyes. And he set out to go to San Francisco through the Bering Strait to Wrangel Island. And on Wrangel Island, he thought that the North Pole would extend, or the Wrangel Island would extend to the North Pole. He says, that's pretty easy. I'll just get in my boat, I'll let it freeze, and then it just goes around the North Pole, and then I just get off my ship and walk. Well, it didn't really go like that for George. What happened was that in the summer of 1888, the ship fell over its side, it groaned and it moaned, and then it disappeared in the dark, deep Arctic Ocean. Really sad. Got this thing. Okay. Sorry. There's George. George wasn't too happy. He got on the ice, he stuck out his tongue, and it immediately froze to his beard. It had to be sawed free with a knife. Can you imagine? 41 degrees below centigrade. Now that's not so uncommon. I mean, I've had temperatures like that. But that day was a day in the middle of June. For the next 3 months, George is pushing with his crew up and over through these ice ridges, 900 kilometers till they find land in Siberia. This is where they reached the Lena Delta. They got there, they were utterly exhausted. They had frostbite, they had scurvy, and they were all going to die. George DeLong rationed his crew 4 biscuits, 2 lumps of sugar, 1 tablespoon of lime juice. And when that ran out, they ate the packs of their straps, the soles of their shoes, dipped in lamp oil, and then they continued another 10 days to survive on 1 tablespoon of glycerine, swallowed with willow tea. What a diet, huh? This is what I thought. I had it better than that. George was the last one to die. No help came in sight. And unfortunately, we never really know how he felt. But he wrote down a lot of important details in his journals and in his letters. So when I came down there in Siberia in 2007, finishing up my frozen Arctic journey, somebody tapped me on the shoulder and said, I'm sorry, but can we really stop with these slides? There's something going on here. I'm not pressing this. hold up. Or go back actually 2 slides, please. Thank you. When I came down there, I had the letter of De Lang in my hand. It was his farewell letter. Now that was a really profound moment because I don't think anybody had ever seen that letter, ever. So I was the first Westerner to read these words. But there was nothing in there about how he felt, if he thought it was worth it to risk his life to do that. There was no apology to his wife or his children about the journey that he undertaken. All it was simply, oh, such and such died today, oh, such and such died tomorrow. It was really meticulously recorded. So I got on a plane in Siberia and I flew to the beginning of my own North Pole expedition. And this is what I saw. What you see here is the Laptev Sea. This is the middle of the March, when the ice in the Arctic should be at its widest point. But what do I see? I see ice colliding, I see ice bumping, I see stretches, I see water. I didn't see anything at all that De Lang saw, which was a solid, beautiful iceberg. The year is 2007. It's the worst year on record since we start measuring that. Now here are some scientists greeting us. They're mostly from Russia. They probably had run out of vodka because they were very groggy. And they asked us, get us out of here. We don't want to be here anymore. For 2 weeks, they were confined to the tents because the wind on the North Pole had increased to 100 kilometers per hour. And they wanted to get out of there. They said they were spinning so fast on this ice that they were actually getting seasick. Now, they also said that the ice was only 40 centimeters thick. 40 centimeters is nothing. Normally, in a very good Arctic year, you have ice that's about 1 meter to 2 meters thick, but 40 centimeters is really not what we want. So we started our own North Pole expedition. We are taking a GPS to get our bearings, but the ice was set into motion a long time ago. It was going around and around and around, and our GPS could not find the coordinates to give us a message of where we exactly were. So 2 hours later, we came back to the same point as where we started. A horrible feeling, but that wasn't enough. At night, we would be so happy to have done 15 kilometers a day, and while we were sleeping, we would drift back 25 kilometers to the south and 3 kilometers to the east. Each day, it would be like that. So we were actually moving further away from the North Pole than we were getting closer. We were moving back to the same place that we started. It's very, very demoralizing. This is what we were looking for. This here is multiple year ice. This is good ice. This is the ice that anchors the Arctic snowpack. This is the ice that the polar bears like. This is the ice the walruses like. They can rest on it. This is ice that is about 4 to 5 years old. But since 2009, there's none of this ice anywhere in the Arctic. Where is it? I'll tell you in a moment. This is how we do these trips. It looks brutal, eh? It's a great workout. It's good for your abs. You pack your sled with everything you need, some cooking gear, some tents, some food, and then you just pull it as far as you can. These sledges weigh between 60 and 80 kilos. They're not very light, so you need to be very strong to do it. And this is a good day on the ice. This is not so good. As you get closer to the North Pole, there is something else coming in. It's called the transpolar drift. It happens around 88 degrees, and the pole actually pulls the ice away and creates these huge giant cracks. And you have to negotiate these cracks. You have to literally step over them. And sometimes you're not so lucky. Then you have to run for it. Like here I'm taking a picture and the ice underneath my feet is opening up. And I'm really in a dilemma what to do. So I just put away my camera and run across as fast as I can. They say that Arctic expeditions is as dangerous, or more dangerous rather, than climbing Everest. Now I've done both, so I can really speak with authority. I think this is very dangerous. This here is what you don't want to do, but you end up doing all the time if you go to the North Pole today. Because there is not enough ice. You have to put on your suit. You have to completely put it over your clothing, under your boots, over your gloves, and then you jump in that ice-cold water. Have you done in your life something that you never want to do before? This is one of them. You just have to do it. You hold your breath and then you focus. You get to the other side. And then once you jump in that water, all you can think of, did I really close my zipper? Water. And this is in March, when it should be one solid frozen ice pack. All we could see was water around us.
Spread yourself, spread yourself.
Okay, you push.
But then you're at the top of the world. Here we are. Here we are, all of us. There is no gift shop. There is no sign you made it. There's no airstrip. There's no restaurant. There's nothing. In fact, the flag that you see there was with a British team. We planted that right on the North Pole. But a minute later, the North Pole had already moved on, was somewhere else. The Arctic ice is always in motion. You're never really stationary. The only proof that you really have that you have been at the North Pole is your GPS, where it says 90 degrees north. And you better hold on to that, because that's the only proof. Now, why is this Arctic ice also important? It is our air conditioner. It is the cooling of the world. Without it, we would have a lot of problems. We're already going to see that this winter. This ice is important because it keeps everything intact. Our ocean currents, it keeps intact our conveyor belts of the oceans. It keeps our air pressures intact. Now normally, all these sunbeams that are hitting the Earth will bounce right back into the atmosphere if there's a white surface with snow. If the ice is melting, it is going to be accelerating because the ice is so thin right now, because of increased air temperature and because of increased water temperature. It's going to be faster and faster each year. It's beyond its tipping point. Now, if you take a look at these statistics here, this is Putin's. A few months after ice stood on the North Pole, a few months later, Putin organized a submarine and planted a flag right at the bottom and claiming that the North Pole was his. Remember that, 2007? That mobilized Canada to immediately get all their navy to the Canadian Arctic, and as well as Greenland, to declare sovereignty. Now, he could have never done that if it wasn't for 2007, because 2007 was the worst year on ice. If you look at this animation, you see the ice is constantly moving, but it's completely ice-free around Russia. So they could have easily just gone with a whole load of ships just to claim the North Pole just on that. This is a time lapse from 1 year of the year 2007. Now, if you see, the ice is moving through Greenland, which is called the Fram Strait. And that's also where there is a gyre, which is basically a maelstrom where all the ice gets together and gets into an incubator where it actually forms and grows. So it just saves the ice. That's the normal pattern. But since the 1980s, that is just not happening anymore. And we don't know exactly why. So this is really a kind of a doomed picture, unfortunately, but I also feel it's my job to tell you what the real status is of the Arctic ice. Here, take a look at this. 2007, my year, 2011. That was then the worst history of ice. Now, 2011 has exceeded that record already. It's been unheard of that in August, the North Pole is ice-free. We had an ice-free North Pole this year, which also means if you look around the coast of Russia, there is the first year there was a complete ice-free northeast and ice-free northwest passage probable. So the big ships could actually go around the North Pole and not get into trouble with the ice. Now back to De Long, 130 years ago. If he would have done this trip this summer, he would have had to swim, wouldn't he? Who owns the North Pole? Real brief. That's 4 countries. It's Russia, 50%. It's Canada, it's the United States, it's Greenland, and it is Norway. They all claim part of the pie. And that is going to be a really big issue in the future, because now the ice is melting fast. What they want to do now is try to claim and get there and get to the resources. It would have been inconceivable 10 years ago that a ship could have been here in the Northeast Passage. Now, this year, it's possible. And even you may say, oh, this is great because now I can go on a cruise ship and go to the North Pole. I don't have to ski anymore. I can just stand there on a boat and say I've been there. But actually what is happening is here, all this activity in the Arctic Ocean means that the ice is opening up even further, because you're getting a lot of really dark grooves in the ice where the sun can penetrate and accelerates the melt. I don't have to explain it to you, but what is really going to be a concern for me is that we have a lot of interest in oil exploration there. It's already estimated that by now a couple of the oil companies are signing really big deals, try to get their hands onto the oil. And for me, ladies and gentlemen, this is where we really have to step in. We don't know if there's an oil leak, how we're going to fix it. We don't know if the oil leaks and gets under the ice, how to get it out of there. And we don't know if we're going to start building oil platforms, how we're going to move them away once the ice starts growing in the winter. And until we haven't resolved these questions, then I think we should keep our hands off the North Pole, because it is simply not worth the risk. Thank you very much.